Next up on the Cosmic News Network, First Contact with Joshua Pert.
Good morning, Earthlings. Good. How you doing today? Good. How you doing today? Welcome to First Contact Radio. Welcome to First Contact Radio. To talk about all these things we're talking about is because in life, everything is energy. Every single thing that's out there.
Yo, it's First Contact with Joshua Poet. He's the man on the mic, just in case you didn't know it. Covering news from all around the globe, from the weather and space to UFOs. He'll talk politics and make you open your eyes. Conspiracy theories and government lies. They'll dig it all up and try to find the proof. Cause it's time to demand the truth. It's time.
First Contact Radio. We have
time to demand the truth. It's time.
First Contact Radio. We
It's
have
time
arrived.
to demand the truth. It's time.
First Contact Radio.
It's time to demand
First
the
Contact
truth.
Radio. We have arrived. First Contact. Good morning, Earthlings. How you doing today? Welcome back to First Contact Radio. Let's see what we're dealing with today. It's the 19th. So we have 1 day left till we go from Pisces to Aries, which we make that transition tomorrow, the spring equinox. Today, we are at a transition between two moon signs. So the moon is going from Libra and it is going into Scorpio. We look at see the transition, the time it occurred. It already took place at 4:13 a.m. So we're now in this Scorpio phase. Scorpio is a water sign. Remember, water is about emotions and feelings. So we have double water today. We have Pisces, which is the sun sign, conscious mind, water, emotions. And we have the unconscious mind, Scorpio, emotions. The difference between these two is that Scorpio represents the water and the emotions of things buried way down deep. That's different than the Pisces. The Pisces is more about the emotions that are bouncing back and forth. So the ones that are buried deep, they come up and they need to be looked at. And sometimes we don't know what they are because they're so deep. Whereas the other ones, the Piscean energies, the emotions are just right out there, like wearing the emotions on the sleeve, and the emotions just keep bouncing someone back and forth because each one of them is just as exciting as the other. So the Pisces needs to learn how to balance, not jump from one thing to another. The Scorpio needs to learn to be able to look at the things that are coming out to see if we can understand what they are. What are these feelings that are buried deep? And if we explore these things, well, then we find that things and energy flows better through us. Now we have some transitions here, some transits to look at. We just had this transit going on between Scorpio, and all of these transitions are between Scorpio. They're all trines, which is positive, good, connective energy between the moon sign Scorpio and this other sign. So here we have Mercury, so that's communication. Here we have Neptune, which is looking at things from a new perspective. And here we have Jupiter, which is expansion. So in all three areas there, these feelings and these emotions of the Scorpion and the Scorpio energy, they are going to help us to be able to communicate better, look at life from a different perspective, and expand what our view of the world is. But in order to be able to do that, we have to be, as Dr. Phil says, get real with ourselves. We have to understand what these feelings are as they're coming up, not be afraid to deal with them. Okay? So that's what's going on right there. We go over to our, looking up at the sky tonight. It says asteroid to occult Regulus. For sky watchers in the New York City region and certain areas northward, the faint asteroid 163 Aragon will black out first magnitude Regulus for up to 14 seconds, a little after 2 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. This is the best asteroid occultation ever predicted to cross such a heavily populated area. So if you're in New York, look that up. And anywhere from the Carolinas to Nova Scotia and Manitoba, it's also worth watching to see if Regulus might be occulted by yet unknown satellite of Aragon. Alright? So the International Occulting and Training Association is working with a big public observing campaign. You can find out more about it right there. Okay. This is a link of what you'll see here. There's Regulus. Alright? So look up in the sky, and if you happen to be up at 2 a.m. Eastern daylight time. That's 11 p.m. here in the West Coast. Look up to the sky and see if you can see this blacking out of the star Regulus. It only happens for 14 seconds though, so catch it while it's there. Alright, our moon phase for today. We're in the waning phase, means we're going from a full moon back down, 91% full. Mayan Oracle, today we are at a 10-tone day, which is called the planetary tone of manifestation. Today is the sun guided by the star. So it's the planetary sun guided by the star. Sun is about enlightenment. Star is about shining the light within us, shining the beauty within us. Our hidden power, right here is the dragon, is our ability to give birth to ourselves. The storm is our like-minded energy. It's how we catalyze and gather together the energy that we're ready to send out and use. And then love and loyalty, heart, this is our challenge for today. So we find our position right here, so where we are on the wave spell. We've only got a couple more days left following this theme of the monkey magic. The phrase for today is I perfect in order to enlighten, producing life. I seal the matrix of universal fire with the planetary tone of manifestation. I am guided by the power of elegance. And we go down and we see where we are here. We are at the very last day of this middle column, this middle pillar. So tomorrow we begin a phase where we're going to have 10 days in a row, not starting tomorrow, but we've got a couple day break, and then we've got 10 intense days in a row. That's coming up as we come out of this pillar here. Remember, these 6 are a reflection of these first 6. The middle one is just a place where we go kind of to get some refuge, so to speak. Alright, we go to space weather. Our solar wind, 331.6 kilometers per second. Planetary K index at the moment is quiet, between 1 and 2. Only this small coronal hole here, but nothing bigger than that is seen. Our geomagnetic storm activity, or our M-class flare possibility is at 40. X-class is way down there at only 1%. And then we have geomagnetic storm activity has dropped. It was at 20 in the high latitudes, has dropped down to 15 and even lower. So things are quiet out there in the cosmos. And then last, we have our numerology for today. We can look at 2 numbers. We can look at the number 2 or the number 11. Here's how we arrived at this. Alright, we've got the 3 for March, and we've got the 19th. 1 plus 9 is a 10, and 2014. So 3 plus 1 plus 0 plus 7, that's 11. And 1 plus 1, and that's 2. Some people like to go ahead and continue to add them together, the 11 to make the 2. Others like to stay right there. So whichever way you like to look at the numbers, that's up to you. And here's the 2. 2 is all about the challenge. The one energy breaks apart, and now 2 has to find balance within itself. The tarot card of the 2 would be the card of the High Priestess, which is the inner temple that we go into. The moon is the guide over that particular sign. It deals with the astrological symbol of Cancer. So again, emotions and feelings, and those lead us into that inner chamber. If we go look at 11s, also 11 is the card of justice. It's associated with the sign of Libra. 11s are a master number. They're the most intuitive of all numbers. Okay, so just depends, if you want to look at the 11 or the 2, however you want to do it. Typically, if it gets down, when you reduce the numbers down and it gets down to a number like an 11, a master number, you usually don't reduce further than there, because that in itself has, once you get to the master number phase, you really don't need to go further, because therein it is a big lesson. But sometimes by reducing it further, you can look and see and get a little bit more insight on what that lesson might be. It's fascinating just looking at numbers and just following them through the course of the day. As an experiment, when you're going through the day, look at the numbers that keep showing up in your life, and just see at that moment when those numbers show up, just take a moment to see what you're doing and see how those numbers might relate. And you'll start to find as you look at the numbers and are understanding when they come up at the times when you're doing things, you'll start to see real interesting synchronicity. And it's like reading the numbers as you go along the day, and they'll kind of unfold to what's going on. It's very interesting. Something just to check out. All right, UFO news is up next, so stay tuned. Here we go.
This is the UFO News with Joshua Poet.
All right, Dirk. Thank you very much. Today's first story takes us out to Florida. This was from the 18th. We got these three lights, or maybe three lights part of one craft or individuals. New footage of a strange orbs hovering in the sky above Florida, taken on the Tuesday the 18th. Witness said two stationary UFOs with a helicopter to the right. I was on my way home from walking my girlfriend to her bus stop. On my walk home, I started hearing helicopters. I looked and saw two stationary orb lights in the sky with a helicopter flying to the right of them. Having no idea what the hell the lights were, I ran the rest of the way home to grab my cell phone and record them. When I got home, I got my cell phone and ran out to the balcony and started filming. At first, there was only one helicopter, then eventually two. The two objects in the sky were stationary for about 10 minutes total. I barely saw any movement. I finished recording 3 clips in total and decided to text my girlfriend one of the pictures. By the time I sent the text, the objects were pretty much out of view. And there are our objects in question. There. And when you check and listen to the sound of the video, you can hear the helicopters in this. Checking out to see what's there, alright? So there you go, that's over Florida. Now we're going to go from there up to the space station for yet another sighting. This time, this is what they see in the distance right there. It's very interesting. Alright, so this happened just today. It says I'm in Taiwan. We're 12 hours in the future compared to California. Okay, I was watching the live cam and got lucky enough to catch the beautiful UFO. It's right there. One moment it was there, next minute it's glowing brightly. 1 minute it was not there, next minute it's glowing. The full sighting lasted about 3 minutes. The first 30 seconds is close up. The next 3 minutes is full-size normal view of the live cam with the UFO. Alright, you can see the video is 3 minutes and 23 seconds long. So I jump ahead here. There we go, the full view. Get rid of that little thing there. There it is right out there. Okay, so you have both the close-up view and the long-distance view. And again, if we go to the close-up view, there it is right there. So they're definitely getting some activity up there. Love to have a talk with these astronauts when they came down, huh? About all the things that they're seeing. Alright, we're going to go from there over to Riverside, California. It started from my backyard by seeing an orb plasma exactly above March Air Force Base. And then I saw what looked like a star close to the base began to move at least 1 mile west from its original point within 30 minutes. There was a moment when the star was not visible as it shifted so fast behind the tree. It came out the other side. It would continuously move down from the Moreno Valley towards Riverside.
Yep, third one.
Alright, there we go.
They're back.
And we've got this right there.
Yep, there they are.
Okay. So over Riverside, California. I believe we also saw this one
I told you they'd be back.
earlier this week, so there's a redo. Alright, here's a Phoenix. Pretty sure I saw a UFO tonight. The nearest airport is the other direction. Before I started recording, there was another light. This is in Arizona. My dad saw the Phoenix lights in the area 20 years ago or something. Still freaked out. There we go. Alright, there's a nice UFO in the sky there. Alright. Very cool.
What is that?
Okay. Let's go from there. Let's go to this next one. This is listen to a little interview here. This is Dr. Robert Wood. Says he's confirmed the existence of extraterrestrial life. Dr. Robert Wood worked for 34 years at McDonnell Douglas, a major American aerospace manufacturer and defense contractor, producing a number of famous commercial and military aircraft. Dr. Wood developed space projects for the United States. They wanted to emulate the UFO technology. We're going to listen to this. It's just a little over 3 minutes here, 3 minutes 40 seconds. So check this out.
Cada día más militares y científicos revelan haber participado en proyectos secretos para el gobierno de los Estados Unidos en busca de apoderarse de la tecnología OVNI. En diciembre de 2013, se publicó una entrevista con el ingeniero aeronáutico y doctor en física Robert Wood, quien trabajó por 43 años para la empresa aeroespacial McDonnell Douglas, desarrollando proyectos ultrasecretos para el gobierno de los Estados Unidos, que intentarían imitar la tecnología de los objetos voladores no identificados. En dicha entrevista, el Dr. Robert Wood reveló que durante la Guerra Fría trabajó en un proyecto secreto del gobierno estadounidense clasificado como Código Nivel Mundial, desarrollado para estudiar el programa balístico de defensa de misiles soviéticos, programa que le permitió tener acceso a archivos altamente clasificados de la Fuerza Aérea Americana, incluyendo archivos secretos referentes al fenómeno OVNI, que pudo analizar por todo un año. Sin embargo, después de ese tiempo, todo el material de la biblioteca desapareció misteriosamente.
But and you have access to special libraries. So one of the things that we could do was to go up to the library that the Air Force ran and sort of paw through top secret material. So since I was interested in UFOs, I had some usual business to take care of, and I'd also kind of look in their library to see what they had on that subject. And for about a year, I was getting quite a few hits on the subject about various reports. And then all of a sudden, the whole subject material vanished. It is the entire classification, numerical classification for the subject, and it just vanished.
Asimismo, el científico afirmó que McDonnell Douglas se financió por proyectos que él mismo dirigió para desarrollar instrumentos de comunicación telepática extraterrestre.
There were other things as I became more familiar with the literature that I gradually developed an opinion on. One was the opinion that the psychic communication was always a clue and was usually present. As I remember, the one case that particularly impressed me of some guy in Mexico said he came around, he was hiking, he came around a corner, and there was this huge alien with a device around his belt. And so the guy touched the belt, turned a knob, and all of a sudden he was hearing what the alien was thinking, directly, just like that. And said, well, you know, that's what we need is a device like that.
Finalmente, comentó que la empresa tenía conocimiento sobre la conspiración del gobierno de los Estados Unidos para ocultar la información de choques de ovnis y de su intención de apoderarse de la tecnología extraterrestre.
So, since then, I have not closed my mind to any possibility, including the degree to which we might have been successful in reverse engineering or reverse sciencing the craft, the possibility that we've been doing that same process in the psychic domain, and the possibility that our intelligence and counterintelligence forces are sufficiently sophisticated that there's almost nothing they can't deal with.
Las extraordinarias declaraciones del Dr. Robert Wood comprueban que algunos gobiernos como el de los Estados Unidos poseen información clasificada sobre la realidad ovni extraterrestre y que desde hace décadas mantienen una campaña para evitar que la verdad sea revelada. Para Tercer Milenio, Carlos Rubio.
All right, so there you go. It's Dr. Robert Wood. And one last piece here. Now, we all hear the story about disclosure. We're looking for disclosure. Well, many of us understand disclosures already happened. There are those who need to actually have the government or news agencies tell them what's real. For those individuals that need to have that, well, perhaps one day that will happen. But here's a good question that goes along with disclosure. If UFOs were really disclosed, would the public really listen? Rather than pontificate about my personal experiences during abductions, I herein submit to what already long exists on public record. According to Dr. Gregory Little, a psychologist and a UFO researcher and author, Steiger Blue Book Files released in Canadian UFO Report, we are part of a symbiotic relationship with something which disguises itself as an extraterrestrial invasion so as not to alarm us. Terence McKenna, from a lecture, says one theory which can no longer be taken very seriously is that UFOs are solar interstellar spaceships. Arthur C. Clarke, from the New York Times Book Review, there seems to be no evidence yet that any of these craft or beings originate from outer space. And we have a large part of the available UFO literature is closely linked with mysticism and metaphysicals. It deals with subjects like mental telepathy, automatic writing, invisible entities, as well as phenomena like poltergeist, manifestation, and possession. I'm not at liberty to discuss the government's knowledge of extraterrestrial UFOs at this time. I'm still personally being briefed on the subject. It's a quote by Richard Nixon. And we go on and on. We see all these different quotes here, right? So what's the point of all this? Just to show that there's so many different thoughts about what's going on out here. I'll read the closing here. In closing, to update, only after I've had read my article and about my rude awakenings to my abductions of the alien presidents, a highly personal disclosure of some 20-some articles, Soul of Wit, and double that on Facebook, can one dismiss, call me a barred-faced liar. I have little or no response here and elsewhere to many articles about my experience with non-human intelligence. Either way, the many articles about non-human beings that take me in return reflect the current, ongoing, present-day contacts of alien encounters. What I have further gleaned and surmised is always tantamount in these articles. My experiences are a microcosm that reflect the larger macrocosm of UFO being creatures and their interactions with us since prehistoric time. In many of my articles, I am angry with tirades meant for the poorly informed public at large who question my sanity, and never my paragraphs. Perhaps an alien Jedi mind trick, mankind remains persistently and stubbornly oblivious to the extraterrestrial purposes, stubbornly unable to consider alien being tactics and motives. Instead, like children, society is absorbed and focused only on the superficial aspect of physical UFOs, flying saucer alien crafts. The glaring global alien truth, however, is down the long haul and somewhere else. Well, it's a good article, because that's the problem. Humans can be their own worst enemies, can't they? I mean, here we have a situation that has been going on since as long as we've been around. And yet we still have disbelievers. But it's understandable in this society how we get that way, because it all boils down to psychology. When you look at the news stations, you turn them on, they play these psychology tricks on people all the time. So you turn on the news and they tell you what to think. A good example is, look what Fox News is doing. Fox News is a mainstream news network. Mainstream, by definition. Mainstream is what is the mainstream being watched. They're one of them. But Fox News does this trick. They tell you that they are cable network news and they are distancing themselves from the mainstream news. But that's kind of ludicrous, and they're taking liberties at creating new definitions. So people that watch that and actually believe what they say are actually becoming less intelligent, because mainstream news and Fox, well, they go hand in hand. They haven't changed from being mainstream. They just are calling themselves cable news network. But now, guess what? Turn on your television these days. Everybody has cable. All of the television networks that come on are on cable television. Therefore, aren't they all cable networks? So Fox is doing this little trick, and they all do this. They put out these words and try to convince you something's not real. So it's easy to see how people will watch the news and get this idea about extraterrestrials, which doesn't have anything to do with what they're about, because the reporters on there just laugh, and they're not even reporters. The commentators just laugh at the subjects, just like anything else that they don't believe or they're told not to believe. They just downplay them. So we really need to be better at informing ourselves about what's going on and stop being enemies to our own information, because we understand. we've just gotten in the habit of allowing the less informed individuals to be the ones who are dictating what's going on. And I don't know about you, but I'm kind of tired of the stupid people dictating what's happening in the world, because they don't know. They're not paying attention. There are way more smarter people, a lot more people, millions of more people that are really on top of what's going on. And we need to bring that to the forefront. We need to really pay more attention as a whole. So there you have it. That's the UFO news for today. I'm going to jump away just for a moment. I'll be back today. We're going to be talking all about the Sphinx in depth. So stay tuned. I'll be right back.
Another alien visitor claimed that his race had been looking in on us for centuries, and that they had in fact influenced the course of human history in some rather critical and startling ways.
Alright, before we get to the Sphinx, I have one story here. This is a resurrection story. Scientists resurrect 1,500-year-old moss. Despite being frozen in ice for over a millennium, the ancient moss started to grow after being thawed. Scientists at the British Antarctic Survey collected samples of the moss from the depths of an Antarctic permafrost and placed them in an incubator at temperatures similar to that of the conditions experienced by the live specimens in the summer. To their surprise, the moss started to grow new shoots within just 3 weeks, making this the oldest frozen plant to ever be resurrected. Previous efforts to accomplish the same thing have succeeded only in thawing moss that had been frozen for less than 20 years. Various people have asked us, did we do anything complicated to make it regrow? Basically just cut it in half, put it in the incubator, and did as little as possible. The team will now be looking to determine whether it be possible to revive moss that has been frozen for even longer, with the oldest samples dating back to over 5,000 years. Alright, just thought that'd be interesting. What's going on? Alright, let's turn our attention to the Sphinx. So we have this huge monument in the desert, and we have these Egyptian researchers that are out there, and the researchers of the Sphinx and the pyramids, who have certain things to say about it. But then we have other researchers who have other things to say about it. And the question is, how is there a discrepancy? How are different groups of scientists who are studying the same monument coming up with different results? And they're very, very different results. So, again, it goes back to this idea of how we are our own worst enemy, because we listen to those who are pulling the wool over our eyes, who aren't being completely honest. And we need to pay more attention to those who are out there that are really bringing us information. So we're going to start here. Alright, I've got a number of sites we're going to look at. This first one here, Ancient History Encyclopedia, Mystery of the Great Sphinx. Buried for most of its life in the desert sand, an air of mystery has always surrounded the Great Sphinx, causing speculation about its age and its purpose, method of construction, concealed chambers, role in prophecy and relationships to equally mysterious pyramids. Much of this theorizing is to despair Egyptologists and archaeologists who reasonably, it seems to me, only give credence to theories that are backed up by tangible evidence. Facing the rising sun, the Great Sphinx is located on the Giza Plateau, 10 kilometers west of Cairo, on the west bank of the Nile River. Later Egyptian rulers worshipped it as an aspect of the sun god, calling it Horem Aktet, or Horus of the Horizon. The Sphinx sits in part of the necropolis of ancient Memphis and the seat of power for the pharaoh, a short distance from the three pyramids, the Great Pyramid of Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure. Okay. The monument is the largest surviving sculpture from the ancient world, measuring 73.5 meters in length and in parts 20 meters in height. Part of the uraeus, or sacred cobra, which protected from evil forces, the nose and the ritual beard are missing. The beard is now displayed in the British Museum. The extensions at the side of the head are part of the royal head cloth. Although the head of the Sphinx has been badly affected by thousands of years of erosion, traces of the original paint can still be seen near one ear. It is thought originally that the Sphinx face was painted dark red. A small temple between its paws contained dozens of inscribed stelae placed by the pharaohs in honor to the sun god. So the Sphinx has suffered greatly from the ravages of time, man, and modern pollution. In fact, what has saved it from complete destruction is the fact that it has been submerged beneath the desert sand for most of its life. And there has been various attempts to restore the Great Sphinx over the millennia, beginning around c. 1400 BC, with the pharaoh Thutmose IV. After falling asleep in the shade of the Sphinx, when out hunting, the pharaoh dreamed that the Great Sphinx was choking from the sand engulfing it, and that it told him that if he cleared the sand, he would obtain the crown of Upper and Lower Egypt. In between the front paws of the Sphinx is a granite stela, now called the Dream Stela, which is inscribed with the story of the pharaoh's dream. Towards the end of 2010, during routine excavation work in the area of the monument, Egyptian archaeologists discovered a large section of mud brick walls, which were part of a larger wall which stretched for 132 meters around the Great Sphinx. The archaeologists believe that the wall was built by Thutmose IV after his dream to protect the Sphinx from the desert winds. After the clearing ordered by Thutmose IV, and despite the wall, the Colossus sculpture once again found itself beneath the sand. When Napoleon arrived in Egypt in 1798, he found the Sphinx without its nose. 18th century drawings reveal that the nose was missing long before Napoleon's arrival. One story goes to say that it was the victim of a target practice in the Turkish period. Another, and perhaps the most likely explanation, is that it was pried off by chisels in the 8th century AD by a Sufi who considered the Sphinx a sacrilegious idol. In 1858, some kind of sands around the sculpture was cleared by Auguste Mariette, the founder of the Egyptian Antiquities Service, and between 1925 and 1936, French engineer Émile Brazet excavated the Sphinx on behalf of the Antiquities Service, possibly for the first time since antiquity. The Great Sphinx was once again exposed to the elements. Explanation for the enigmatic sculpture favored by Egyptologists is that Khephren, a 4th dynasty pharaoh, had the stone shaped with a line into his own face at the same time as the construction of the nearby pyramid of Khephren around 2540 BC. However, there is no inscriptions anywhere that identify Khephren with the Sphinx. Neither is there any mention of its construction, which is somewhat puzzling when considering the grandness of the monument. I want to jump down here. This is the part we're looking at, the dating of the Sphinx. There's been a lively debate in recent years over the dating of the monument. Author John Anthony West first noticed weathering patterns on the Sphinx that were consistent with water erosion rather than wind and sand erosion. These patterns seemed peculiar to the Sphinx and were not found in other structures on the plateau. West called the geologist and Boston University professor Robert Schoch, who, after examining the new findings, agreed that there was new evidence for water erosion. Although Egypt is an arid today, around 10,000 years ago the land was wet and rainy. Consequently, West and Schoch have concluded that in order to have these effects of water erosion, they found the Sphinx would have to be between 7,000 to 10,000 years old. Egyptologists dismissed Schoch's theory as highly flawed, pointing out that once prevalent great rainstorms over Egypt had stopped long before the Sphinx was built. More serious, why were there no other signs of water erosion found in the Giza Plateau to validate West and Schoch's theory? The rain could not have been restricted to the single monument. West and Schoch have also been criticized for ignoring the high level of local atmospheric industrial pollution over the last century, which has severely damaged the Giza monuments. Someone else with his own theory behind the Sphinx's date is author Robert Reval. Reval published a paper in 1989 showing that the three great pyramids at Giza and their relative position to the Nile formed a kind of 3D hologram on the ground of the three stars of Orion's belt and their relative positions to the Milky Way. Along with the fingerprints of the god author Graham Hancock, Reval developed an elaborate theory that the Sphinx, its neighboring pyramids, and the various ancient writings constitute some sort of astronomical map connected with the constellation Orion. Their conclusion is that the best fit for this hypothetical map is the position of the stars in 10,500 BC. So pushing the origin of the Sphinx even back further in time, this date is understandably disputed by Egyptologists, not as a single archaeological artifact date that period has ever been discovered in the area. Alright, and then of course they've got secret passages. There are various legends of secret passages associated with the Great Sphinx. Investigations by Florida State University, Waseda University in Japan, and Boston University have located various anomalies in the area around the monument. Although these could be natural, in 1995, workers renovating a nearby parking lot uncovered a series of tunnels and pathways, two of which plunge further underground close to the Sphinx. Robert Ball believes that these are contemporaneous with the Sphinx itself. Between 1991 and 1993, while examining evidence for erosion at the monument using a seismograph, Anthony West's team found evidence of anomalies in the form of a hollow, regularly shaped spaces or chambers a few meters below the ground between the paws on either side of the Sphinx. No further examination has been allowed. Today, the Great Sphinx is crumbling because of the wind, humidity, and smog from Cairo. A huge and costly restoration and preservation project has been underway since 1950, but in the early days of the project, cement was used for repairs, which was incompatible with the limestone and so caused additional damage to the structure. Over a period of 6 years, 2,000 limestone blocks were added to the structure, and chemicals were injected in it, but the treatment failed. By 1988, the Sphinx's left shoulder was in such a state of deterioration that blocks were falling off. At present, restoration is still an ongoing project under the control of the Supreme Council of Antiquities, who are making repairs to the damaged shoulder and attempting to drain away some of the subsoil. Consequently, today the focus is on preservation rather than further explorations or excavations, so we have to wait a long time before the Great Sphinx gives up her secrets. Alright, let's jump over to this one here. Here we have Redating the Sphinx. Prehistoric Sphinx is the question. It says, as part of a 1979 mapping survey, Dr. Mark Lerner, director of the American Research Center in Egypt in the 80s, and Dr. K. Lal Ghauri, director of the Stone Conservation Laboratory at the University of Louisville, Kentucky, identified and recorded the exposed surface strata of the monument in the stone blocks that provided a protective facing to its lower elevations. Lerner's 1980 report noted an anomaly about the main body. Except for the prominent boss on the chest, we have nowhere observed any kind of working marks on the core body, either in the way of tool marks or the surfaces that would have seemed to have been left by rough quarrying activity. Neither have we found any profile in that core that would appear to be a finished sculpture. This might easily be explained by saying that part of the core body now showing, almost entirely of the soft bed to stone, has been eroded so badly that all such traces have disappeared. Even so, in the cross sections showing through the successive layers of masonry added to the core, one would expect such traces to show under the earliest level of stonework had it been added soon after the core was formed, thereby protecting the profile of the parent rock. But on the face and the profile of the core, in such cases, there are no observable identifications of parts of a finished profile or a working marks. Rather, the profile of the core seems in all cases to be one of the severe erosion, leaving the softer yellowish bands and the harder intermediate strata showing a profile of successive rolls and undulations. These considerations would seem to indicate that the core body of the Sphinx was already severely eroded when the earliest level of a large block masonry was added to it. To reconcile the observations with traditional attribution of the monument to Khafra, Lerner and his colleagues concluded that the earliest facing stones were repairs dating from the New Kingdom, 1400 BCE. Subsequently, restaurants show that there was no significant erosion to the Sphinx after the repairs of the New Kingdom. Consequently, the weathering had to have occurred in the centuries from 2500 to 1400. But then we have John Anthony West. It says his findings came to the attention of the writer and tour guide John Anthony West. He was first touched on the Sphinx in his book Serpent in the Sky, and an introduction to English to the work of the French esotericist R.A. Schwaller de Lubitz. Schwaller believed that Egypt was the source of ideas associated with the great philosopher and teacher Pythagoras. It was a proper understanding of ancient Egypt required an openness to the mystical as well as mathematical knowledge that Schwaller believed to be encoded in Egyptian art and architecture. Schuyler's major work, Temple and Man, is now available in English. Schuyler also speculated that ancient Egypt owed its core knowledge to a lost civilization that flourished in prehistoric times. As evidence of the earlier origin, Schuyler asserted that the weathering of the Sphinx was caused by water, not by wind and sand. During the transition from the last ice age to the onset of present desert conditions, Egypt experienced rainfall and flooding heavier than any that occurred since then. Heavy rains fell in an interval between 10,000 and 3000 BCE and then tapered off to the current level of about 2 centimeters per year by the end of the third millennia. Schuyler dated the Sphinx to this transition climate or earlier, and West thought closer geological study of the Sphinx might provide scientific confirmation. Alright, so we go down here, and it gets into, the Schlock who talked about him. West had supposed the Nile River flooding was likely the cause of any water weathering of the Sphinx and its enclosure. Josh determined, however, the flood levels were not high enough to produce the erosion visible on the Sphinx and its walls. The erosion surface and its deep roundness and fissuring suggested to Stock instead that the Sphinx and its wall had eroded from rainfall. Okay, and now I'm going to go over to this piece here. The age of the Sphinx. Here's another one. This is from Robert Ruval. The Sphinx is not built with quarried blocks like the pyramids and the temples it guards, but carved out of living bedrock. Its makers gave it a man's head, some say it's a woman's, and the body of a lion. It is 66 feet high and an impressive 240 feet long. It is the most extraordinary expression, like 100 Mona Lisas all rolled into one. And its eyes gaze forever at the distant horizon due east, at the equinox point, at something not of this world but beyond it in the sky, something perhaps that is indicated or reflected or frozen in the essence and age of the Sphinx. Nothing can prepare a first-time visitor for the awe-inspiring and humbling experience of meeting the great Sphinx face to face. No matter who you are, no matter what your disposition and temperament are, the great Sphinx of Giza will leave you unmoved. John Anthony West is a man who knows this phenomenon well. He has stood in the shadow of the great statue many a time since he started visiting Egypt some 30 years ago. To him, the Sphinx always had appeared as a monument apart and much, much older than anything else that had been seen at Giza or elsewhere. West's strong gut feeling had really let him down. One day, while reading a book by the French author and mathematician Schuyler de Lubitz, an answer to his intuitive hunch came shooting straight at him. Schuyler made a passing remark on what appeared to be water erosion on the body of the Sphinx. Okay, so we've talked about where the water was. Here's some more about, says astronomy joins the Sphinx debate. 1989 published a paper in the Oxford Journal in which demonstrated that the three great pyramids and the relative positions in the Nile on the ground were related to the three stars in Orion's belt. So is what Robert Ruval had found out. Alright, now we're going to jump over here. Here's another John Anthony West page, and here we actually have questions being asked of him. Here's this question here. Here is something I've been wanting to quiz you for a while. I've heard you refer to democracy as one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse. Could you explain why you think democracy is so dangerous, and what would you personally replace it with? I'm certainly no fan of the current democratic model in the West. It's been said that democracy is the worst form of government. Okay, here we go. If you have repeatedly referred to the Sphinx as being vastly old, certainly older than Scotia's original interpretation of the Sphinx data, could you possibly narrow that down for me and give me your own take on the civilization that originally carved it? For example, do you think they possessed technology that equaled or surpassed our own? Were they more spiritually advanced? Here's his answer. Not four horsemen, four cowboys. One of these days I'll get around to the substantial Phoenix Fire episode explaining this point in some depths. Here are a few bites you have to suffice. Let me see here. Let's go into democracy. Here we go. Scotch is now pretty much convinced and admits that his conservative estimate is too conservative. For astronomical reasons, Sphinx as the age of the Leo marker, combined with the pre-dynastic reigns described on the Palermo stone and the torn papyrus, plus the severity of the weathering on the enclosure walls, I'm inclined to go until proved otherwise with 36,000 BC, which is what the Palermo stone and torn papyrus compute to. as with all these things, it's complicated. People will pay good money to be told by a religious authority figure that they will live forever, Brad Weiner. Yet, and they will pay much more for the depreciated money to be told by secular authority figures that their lives are completely meaningless and that they will live in a way in advanced civilization despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary. John Anthony West. All right, there's some more good questions and answers here. And one more here. Who built the Sphinx? And this is the story of the pharaoh Thutmose when he fell asleep in front of the Sphinx. And now the information was written down in the stela between the paws. Then we have alternative authors have concluded the traditional attribution of the Sphinx to Khafre is flawed because Egyptologist James Henry Rested had said that the stela before the Sphinx that bore Khafre's name did not contain a cartouche, the circle enclosing the name of a king or god. Alternative authors Graham Hancock and Robert Ball quoted this belief in their message of the Sphinx. They go on to say it is therefore extremely difficult to understand how on the granite stela between the paws of the Sphinx the name of as powerful king as Khafre or indeed any other king could have been written without its pre-required cartouche. And then we just go on more. So, a lot of information, a lot to read. So, when you listen and you hear, what's his name, Dr. Awas talking about what's going on out there in Egypt, he's just one of those who is just towing the party line. He's not looking and following the evidence that's really out there. You know, when you look at the Sphinx and they have looked at the star patterns, they see that the Sphinx in 10,500 BC was facing Leo, facing the astronomical sign of Leo. Well, here we have a big lion in the desert facing Leo. Seems to make sense. There also seems to be some synchronicity with these star patterns in Orion's belt. So the Sphinx is definitely older. Definitely older. Probably going all the way back to the time of Atlantis, because that's when this 10,500 year period is, and before. So we've got something that's much older, and we certainly have the fighting of who's going to have control of this information, which is why the information is so slow in coming out from there. Now, I believe, just kind of related sort of, if we look at the situation taking place in Crimea, remember the story of all those pyramids that are there? 37 pyramids, they said they found 7 of them under the ground there, and these pyramids date back to the time of the dinosaurs. These are some of the oldest monuments on the planet, and they just happen to be in Crimea and Sebastopol, the areas where all this battle is going on. And people keep saying, what's going on over there? What is this all about? Well, you're not hearing the news tell you what it's really all about. What it's really all about is something much deeper. So I've got the stories up. You can read those. You probably already heard them if you've been watching the show. But there's definitely something more going on. Something more than meets the eye. It's kind of like the what's going on with this airplane. Something more meets the eye. All the news stations, all they can talk about is the airplane. That's all they can talk about. And they're in agreement with each other on this, and they're telling the same story. The other day, Fox News was on where I was, and I heard Bill O'Reilly actually complaining about how the mainstream stations only talk about this plane. And he was complaining about these other stations. Well, all he did during the course of his broadcast was talk about the plane. And then the show ended and Kelly came on, and all she talked about was the plane. So the hypocrisy is that here's a network which is complaining about other networks, saying the mainstream is doing this, but the cable network, is not. They're doing the same thing. It's just all double speak, and it's not intended to make one smarter. Actually, quite the opposite. So we need to stop listening to all of this double speak. We need to stop listening to those who are towing the party line, because we're way too smart for that. I know that there's a whole lot more people smarter than the Bill O'Reillys and the Sean Hannitys and the Rachel Maddows and the Anderson Coopers and all the other. I know. So all we have to do is just turn away from that, and we'll be all right. We'll get real information otherwise, right? All right, here is proof that group meditation can change the world. Meditation has the potential to literally transform the world. And we certainly know that because we do it all the time, and it makes a big difference for us. In 1978, what is known as the Maharishi effect took place, where a group of 7,000 individuals over the course of 3 weeks were meditating in hopes of positively affecting the surrounding city. They're able to literally transform the collective energy of the city, which reduced global crime rates, violence, and casualties during the time of their meditation by an average of 16%. Suicide rates and automobile accidents were also reduced, with all variables accounted for. In fact, there was a 72% reduction in terrorist activity during the time at which the group was meditating. Almost 50 studies have been done further confirming the benefits of global meditation and its direct impact on everything in the world, even so far as to have the results published in a Journal of Crime and Justice in 1981. We know meditation has endless benefits and health and physiological benefits, but is now being explored by politics and socially because of its undeniable energetic impact. Right, and a couple of good videos down here. The last sentence here says the secret of the global Maharishi effect is the phenomena known to physics as the field effect, the effect of coherence and positivity produced from the field of infinite correlation, the self-referral field of at least excitation of consciousness, the field of transcendental consciousness, which is the basic to creation and permeates all life everywhere. Meditation takes your consciousness to the implicate levels of existence, where your intentions have consequential effects on the explicit levels of what we interact with before it even manifests. Consciousness gives rise to the material. The key idea is that all existence emanates out of our field of consciousness, called the unified field or a strong field. Alright? So, one way we can certainly relate this is fire, the water, the air, and the earth. We've got the earth, we live on the earth, everything around us is physical, but before it's physical, it's fire, an idea, it's water, emotions or love, and it's air, words and actions. And we take and we put these three qualities together and we build the form. And that's just how it goes. So if we can go into the conscious or the unconscious and we can tap into that field, that energetic field of the mind, then we can affect a great amount of things with it, because we know from the studies, from the spiritual studies and the works that go back through antiquity, that we are all connected. And when we go to that area where we are connected, we can have a great result and a great impact upon this planet. That's why there are so many people doing group meditations around the world, because it works. So, that being said, let us begin our journey towards today's meditation. And this is the channeled message for today. This is SaLuSa.
March 14th, 2014, channeled by Mike Quincy.
SaLuSa.
Dear ones, you are being pulled this way and that way until you get quite frustrated or confused. The reason is that so much is happening all at once, and in your position you find it difficult to know where it is leading. Stay focused on your own position and path and keep spreading the light, as it is needed more than ever. So many people are confused and worried about the future, and that is not surprising when so much is changing. These times also give the Dark Ones and their cohorts opportunities to add to the confusion, as they will soon have to admit that their time is up. Indeed, they will find that they are losing their power and influence. It is all part of the changes that are taking place all over your planet, which will continue until the new age really takes hold. Rest assured that we are present to ensure that confrontations do not get out of hand and war is totally out of the question, and has been for quite some time. We are also in readiness for something that we have been looking forward to for many, many years, and that is your return to the light. There will be worldwide celebrations at the realization that the Dark Ones no longer have the power to interfere with your progress, or prevent the establishment of world peace. You can feel privileged to have been given the opportunity to be present through the changes that are occurring. You can also give yourself a pat on the back, as you have earned the opportunity given. All present on Earth that are working for the light have an important role to play, but do not worry if you do not seem to be doing anything specifically. Every light worker will play a part in spreading the light, and it is already in ascendance. You will look back on this time with pride in your contribution, and will be pleased to have been part of the team that took on the challenge. The bankers who have been revealed for what they really are, have little or no shame of their greed and reckless gambling with the monies that are entrusted to them. Their arrogance and recklessness with other people's money knows no bounds, and whilst they feel safe, the very structure of the banks is breaking up. Before that happens, many changes will take place that shall make use of their expertise. We talk of times that are far ahead, yet as you progress it will be apparent that the monetary system will no longer be necessary. In the long run, the banks will eventually disappear with no role to play in a moneyless society. As a race, you are already collectively lifting your consciousness levels higher, and the incoming energies will quickly take you into the next dimension. Those who choose a different path will naturally be moved to a suitable level or place, to continue their evolutionary experiences. All will find themselves exactly where they should be, appropriate to their stage of evolution and the experiences they need. We would mention that everyone without exception has a life plan, arranged to give them the best benefits from their incarnation. It is normally arranged with you, and you are told which parts are non-negotiable because they are essential to your progress, and often of a karmic nature. Clearly, lives would be wasted if they were randomly arranged, and there must be a life plan that carries you forward. If you fail to achieve the goals that you have agreed to, there are no recriminations against you, as you can take up the challenge again in a subsequent life. So do not worry if you realize that you have failed to achieve any aspect of your life plan. For many light workers, this lifetime will be the last one in the lower dimensions, and you may well intuitively realize this to be so. After spending such a long time in them, every soul is given as much help as possible to raise themselves up. Indeed, in all of your lives you have been assisted, but when the vibration is exceptionally low, it is difficult for the light to penetrate the darkness. However, each soul will achieve some progress, and it is built upon until you are firmly living in the light. Some of those around you will seem to be trapped in the lower energies, and live their lives hand in hand with the dark ones. Do not be too hasty to condemn them, as it is not given for other souls to know the precise nature of their life plan. There are occasions when souls of light perform a service to the light by taking on such a mantle. It is best to reserve judgment, or better still to have none at all. I am SaLuSa from Sirius, and pleased to be back after the trauma that Michael has experienced. Bear in mind that what is seemingly a wasted experience will always have value, and there are inevitably lessons to be learned all round. In such circumstances, we are pleased when your response to such occasions is to continue working in the light and keeping a calm and measured approach to your problems. You are certainly not alone to face the more difficult times, but the challenge is for you to deal with. We cannot do it for you, otherwise the opportunity to raise your vibrations will be lost. Stay focused in the light and know that your journey in the lower vibrations is almost over. I leave you all with my blessings and love.
Thank you, SaLuSa.
Alright, very good. So go ahead and close your eyes. Take a deep breath. And exhale. Take another deep breath. And exhale again. One more deep breath. And as you exhale, just feel the relaxing energy moving through your body. And just allow your breathing to become normal, and just listen to this affirmation. I accept the nourishment needed to have a healthy, balanced life. I accept the nourishment needed to have a healthy, balanced life. Take another deep breath and just allow yourself to feel the nourishment from all around the universe. And understand that nourishment comes to us from sources other than food. It comes to us from the energy all around. As we walk into the sun, we feel the nourishment from the sun, from the wind, the nourishment from the ground, from the trees, from the plants. And as we walk through life, we realize that life continually has a way of providing nourishment for us, energizing us. We simply need to take time just to tune in to that. So imagine yourself tuning in to all the natural energy centers that the earth has to offer. Imagine feeling the warmth of the sun on your face and that energy just filling your body. Imagine feeling the wind blowing across your face and just feeling the energy from the wind, the inspiration. Hear the whisperings as it brings you information about the cosmos. You feel yourself standing on the ground and you feel the energy from Mother Earth drawing up to you, to your feet. Imagine the energy going down into the earth. And as the energy goes down into earth, imagine the earth becoming more stable. Imagine areas on the planet where we've had earthquakes. And let's re-energize those areas by imagining the trees growing deeper and the roots connecting together to form stable foundations. And let's just imagine that we continuously reciprocate this energy exchange with the earth. And as we sustain the earth sustains us as well. And let's just imagine going through life today, sending out positive energy into the world. Positive energy that goes out and removes the toxins from the water supplies, that purifies the air and removes the toxins from the chemtrails and all of the other pollutants that make their way. Let's imagine just sending out such powerful energy that everything around us is purified. And imagine one by one individuals along this planet being inspired by others to do exactly the same thing. Till pretty soon, every day, everyone is energizing the planet. And in turn, everyone is being energized by the planet. And as we come into this synchronistic understanding of how we and the earth energize each other, we find that our understanding of life evolves because we are now understanding a deeper connection that we have with life itself. So let our subconscious mind continue on this journey of exploration today, sending out positive energy into the world. And let's bring our conscious mind back to the present moment. 3, coming back to the present moment filled with confidence. 2, coming back to the present moment filled with faith. And 1, coming back to the present moment happy, healthy, and whole. Happy, healthy, and whole. Take another deep breath. Exhale. And open your eyes. That's it, my friends. That's our show for today. Thank you very much for being here. I'll be back tomorrow with more news and information. So just have an awesome day today. Keep sending out positive energy. I'll do the same. And we'll reconvene tomorrow here, same time. Talk to you soon. Peace. I'm out of here.